this call, we will aim to answer many of the questions that were submitted on DAOtalk, and thank you to all those that did submit them. My name is Kate Beecroft, and I'm the ecosystem lead for DAOstack, and I'm doing a lot of work in the Genesis community. Adam Levi is the CTO and co-founder of DAOstack. He is a blockchain expert who is very deep in the technology, and he brings this lens to DAOstack as the CTO and chief architect. He also has a very strong research background with a Doctor of Philosophy focused in theoretical physics and about a quantum effects of black holes, which from one of the Israel Institute of Technology. Him and Matanfield co-founded DAOstack in 2017, and since that time have seen the company and platform grow substantially, including the ICO in May 2018, creation of the Gen token, the launch of the first DApp, Alchemy, in 2018, and Alchemy Earth, which launched about 3 weeks ago. So with Adam here today, we can go a little bit deeper into the technology and the stack. So Adam, can you confirm if this reasoning is correct? dApps in the DAOstack are merely the front-facing UI of the different DAOs. For instance, Genesis DAO's dApp is Alchemy. However, Alchemy as an interface can also connect to other DAOs. So when the white paper lists a section on collaborative dApps, what does this mean? Will there be different interfaces to the same DAOs? So I'll let you answer that, and if necessary, there's a couple of little follow-up questions there.
Okay, so it's a good question. I just want to start. Let's start with the first section. So, is Alchemy the DApp is just a front-facing UI for the blockchain? This is the definition of a DApp, and the idea is that everything that's going on is actually going on the blockchain, and that's why it's immutable in a way, and we're not controlling the rules, but the rules are already dictated on chain. Because it's hard for people that are not savvy on blockchain to interact directly with the blockchain, then we build a UI to make it nice and playable. I can tell you that I do a lot of my interaction with Genesis, for example, without Alchemy, just to make sure everything works. So that's the definition of a DApp. Regarding the second section, for instance, about Genesis, so DAOstack is not the Genesis UI. DAOstack is an app, is a DApp for building DAOs and working with DAOs. And Genesis is one instance, the first DAO that is on top of Alchemy. And actually, if you go into Alchemy now, you can see that there are already more DAOs on Alchemy. And hopefully, in the coming few weeks, we have a lot of very important projects that are onboarding on top of Alchemy, and you will be able to see them in Alchemy.
Okay, great. So I know that was Rick's question. So if you do want some further clarification there, Rick, please put it into the chat. And there was just that one last comment there. But we will just come back.
What was the last comment?
If not interfaces, what type of DApp functionality are you expecting?
So I'm not sure about the question.
Yeah, I think specifically some of collaborative dApps that would coordinate collaboration in some other way besides the direct voting and staking that Alchemy allows.
Okay. So thank you for clarification, Ori. So I think we see Alchemy as one DApp, as not the DApp, but one window to the DAOstack. And we want to see as many dApps that interact with the DAOstack as possible. Okay. And if we would have had the luxury not to build Alchemy and just having other people building dApps, it would be better, I think, for us to focus on the blockchain side. But I think it's good that we've built the first DApp to let people understand and see how things work and how beautiful this technology is. But it's definitely not the app.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thanks, Ori, as well. Okay, so Adam, we talk about alpha a lot. Is it viable for a project to use this tool yet? If not, when will it be?
Okay, so I think basically DAOstack has been in alpha mode, both the contracts themselves and of course the interface since we launched soon after the ICO. We had the very successful pilot with Genesis Alpha that lasted a few months. And now actually we see this time as the transition in between alpha and beta. And I see now the contract is in beta mode. I can tell you that part of going like the maturing from alpha to beta is the bounty DAO that we now have going on with Gnosis. So we have a bounty of $100,000 that sits on the contracts themselves, that if you can break the contracts, please do it and be my guest and help us debug the contracts, and please help yourself for the funds. So basically what we are doing is we are maturing from alpha to beta. That's what happens in the contracts level and also in the UI. So we see the new Alchemy Earth as beta version. Is it okay or is it good enough for other projects to use it? I think yes, but we need to make some disclaimer, you know. Don't put a lot of funds on this technology, funds that you cannot lose, because this is still cutting edge, you know. We all know where blockchain is, which is at the beginning, and we are on top of, you know, we have blockchain, Bitcoin, which is blockchain generation 1, we have Ethereum, and we have on top of this, we have our own stack. So we are on new grounds here. Don't put things that you cannot lose.
Okay, great. Thank you. So building off of that, Adam, what are your and Alchemy's biggest challenge in the next 3 to 6 or 1 year? What are the big challenges?
So I think about that. So if you've used Alchemy, you know that we have a lot of challenges, although we've made a big step now in Alchemy Earth. And I think our next, our like immediate challenge will be to bring all the functionality that the current Arc has, like all the different schemes that we have, and bring an interface to them. That's the immediate challenge that we have. After that, we have polishing and features. We have a lot of features that users are asking, and we know that would be super useful for Alchemy. Trust me, we have a huge list. And also we need to polish it a bit. There's still a lot of bugs. So this is like the immediate time frame. After that, there are things which are a bit bigger. You know, we want to have at the moment Alchemy is working as people cannot open DAOs for themselves, but whether we open DAOs for important projects, this is a phase, and the next phase will be that, you know, anyone can come and open its own DAO, and this will take a few months, I'm guessing. Another thing that will take a few months probably is mobile. We want to have Alchemy on mobile, of course. A year from now, I can say that basically what the UI will need to do is to integrate. So a year from now, I also see a new version for the whole stack. So we are now designing the next version of the stack, and then of course the UI will have to fit into that, and that will be the biggest challenge. But hopefully in 1 year you will be able to use DAOstack as if it is not on the blockchain. So it will be as smooth as a regular app, or using, you know, WhatsApp on your mobile.
Wow, sounds promising. Okay, Adam, so we've got another question from Pollinator Rick here. For me I'm going to voice his words, obviously. For me to better understand the modular aspect of the stack, can you explain what are the specific modular elements that exist now between the different DAOs, if any? Are any of these elements being developed by third-party developers? And what are DAOstack's plans to outsource this development? There seem to be a number of decentralized projects looking to incentivize this kind of work. Are you thinking of using any of these platforms?
Okay, so that's a multi-part question as well. I'll try to take this one by one. So yes, basically one of the reasons DAOstack the stack is complicated is because it's modular, which is good if you want to build on top of it, but it makes it complicated to understand. So at the moment, for example, what you see in Alchemy is that you have different DAOs, and these DAOs usually have like 2 or 3 schemes that are into them, and you usually only use one scheme, just to clarify how much we already have to go. Okay, so
can you clarify what a scheme is?
Yeah, thank you. So think of a DAO as an organization, okay, and it can do different things, okay. It can do basically everything on the blockchain, okay. And if you want to build on top, you want to build a DAO, so you want to build an organization with certain properties. So it can do A, B, C, D, and it can do A only if it happens X, Y, Z, and it can do B only if there is this and this vote with this and this majority. So basically, each type of this logic, what a DAO can do, we call it a scheme. You can think of it as an app on your phone. Each scheme is an app. Okay, it provides some functionality. Okay, this is the modularity of the system. So the scheme that you are using now in Alchemy, which is called contribution reward for historical reasons, is basically a scheme in which one can propose to get either Ether or reputation or some tokens, other types of tokens. Okay. And there is a voting on this proposal, and if the voting goes, if it passes, then the one who proposed it gets the funds, okay? Or he can propose not to take it to himself, but also to give it to someone else. But the proposal just works, okay? So this is one. Think of it. This is just one scheme, and we have at least 10 schemes in Arc already. And in Alchemy now we have only one, and we need to bring the UI to support them all. So this is about the modularity. Regarding third-party developers, so we are very, very, very happy to have open source developers and other projects developers integrating into the system, because really, if not, then there's no real need to build it in such a complicated modular way. That's the whole purpose. The whole purpose is to have others getting in and building on top. And we have Ori here as representing Dior, for example, who is also one of these groups that are building on top of DAOstack. And we're welcoming everyone that want to do that.
Could you talk a bit more about where in the stack other devs can work? For example, schemes, or is there a way to work on Alchemy Earth directly?
So we want to welcome them all. So basically, if you want to build new voting machines, for example, to have new implementation of holographic consensus to compete with Genesis protocol, we are very happy if you build that on infra, which is really at the bottom of the stack. If you want to build new schemes on Arc, be my guest. If you want to help us improve the caching layer, again, and if you want to build cool things in Alchemy, then again, if you are a React developer, just dig in, we're very happy to have you all. And I think that there's plenty of work for everyone.
And then the last part of that question is, what incentives do devs have for working on those parts of the stack, and how could devs get attention? Like, for example, having some sort of recommended external agency list that Genesis manages. What would be like the process for a dev to like sustainably work on some of these elements?
So that's a really good question. I think in here, unlike most of the open source projects, we have it like we get it for free, because we are building a tool for collaboration, right? So basically, and we have the first instance of this tool, the first DAO, which is Genesis. The whole intention of Genesis is to build DAOstack. That's why we built Genesis, because we believe DAOs are good and DAOs are capable and they're very potent, and we should utilize that to build DAOstack itself. And Genesis is the first DAO, and we are basically planning to have as much funding going through Genesis to fund the developers that want to work on the stack. That's one option. The second option is, as you can see now, there are a lot of projects that want to work on top of DAOstack. So we know that we have the DXDAO coming. We know that we have integration to Polkadot. We know that we have integration with Eatphoenix. So there's a lot of projects that want to work on top of DAOstack and want to build on top of DAOstack, and they will need technical people that understand the stack. Okay, even if they don't want to do anything, let's say they don't even want to integrate, they just want to open their own DAO. But such organizations, which are technical organizations, they cannot just rely on you that these things do what you say it does, right? They want to check, they want to understand, so they need people, experts that understand the stack. And we get these requests all the time, and we don't have enough capacity to even answer everyone. But I think if such teams will connect and start working on DAOstack, then at the right moment we'll also connect them to big projects. And then if this project say we want to work with DAOstack, we say, okay, here is a team, just pay these guys and they will help you because they understand the stack very well.
Great, thank you, Adam. So we're moving down the questions now, and we just have quite a straightforward one submitted from Jordan about bugs. And I think this is a pretty simple answer, and if you just want to add any further clarification for this process afterwards, that would be great. So the question is, when bugs are discovered within the protocol, what are the different processes that exist for deploying fixes for these bugs? His understanding is that for schemes and constraints, remove broken, add new. For voting machine.
Let's do so I remember. So let's do one by one. Okay.
Very good point. Go ahead. So, first one, schemes and constraints. Remove broken, add new. Is this correct?
That's true. That's correct.
Okay, voting machine. Remove and re-add all affected schemes. Now pointing towards the fixed voting machine.
Yes, that's correct. You don't have to remove and re-add. You can just basically change the parameters. So you can edit the parameters to point to the new voting machine, but that's correct as well.
Okay, controller. We have controller upgrade.
It's true.
And avatar requires a complete DAO migration.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. So basically the avatar was built to be as lean as possible because it cannot be upgraded.
Okay, anything further to add on that, Adam? Bugs in the protocol and the process?
I think when building such a modular and complicated system, upgradability is a big issue, and we've tried to put a lot of attention on that, but it comes with a price. It comes with the security prices and gas prices and UI issue, whatnot. And we've done our best, but after building it, we know we could have done much better. Once you finish something, then you understand how you needed to build it from the beginning. So that's what we're doing now. Now we're redesigning the next architecture, and hopefully these things will be better on the next architecture. But all that you've stated is correct.
Okay, just a follow-up that I'm going to pick up from the chat. Ari, I think that's a good idea. Is from Rick. How disruptive is a complete migration? Can you give an example of an avatar bug that would cause this?
So how disruptive? It's actually not that disruptive. So you could think of it as a hard fork in a blockchain. Okay, Ethereum has hard forks every year or so, and their community is a bit bigger than us. And so it's not very disruptive, but it is a bit disruptive. Can I give an example? Well, actually no, because that's the whole idea. The avatar is really, really, really lean. It's really a small contract, and it's dead by design, so that it will have 0 bugs.
Okay. So
And
another,
if I'm wrong, then you have the video afterwards to tell me to point fingers at me.
we have evidence.
Yes.
Okay, so even more of a challenge to break it. So another question from Jordan. Has there been any talks of creating different types of wallets or bank accounts that are controlled by the avatar? And the example would be a long-term saving account versus a monthly spending account. Different rules could be added to each account to ensure a budget plan can be protocolized without the agents having to eyeball things.
So that's a really good question, and I have to say this is some kind of a misunderstanding of how ARC works. So this is not only we talked about it, but this is already there by design. You don't have to put all the organization funds in the avatar. That's what we do now because it's simple, but that's not how you have to do that. And definitely, if you have something which is complex, you want to do short-term things, you want to do long-term things. That's not the way to do that. And you can add a contract which is owned by the avatar and have a scheme. Let's call this contract, for example, the long-term saving of the DAO, and have a scheme that controls this wallet, this long-term saving, and that's how you should do that. And I think we should do such things. But we start simple. That's all.
Okay, so moving down now through the list, can you just talk a bit about the purpose of the quiet ending period to proposals in Alchemy? Getting a bit away from the tech, but towards the protocol.
So quiet ending is really one of the prettiest things in a holographic consensus and in Genesis protocol. I have to say that I was very surprised when we talked to other projects that are doing decision making and governance and things that are similar to that they didn't have quiet ending because it's basically you can't really. I don't see how you can make any fair game without it. So let's explain. Let's start by explaining. So what is quiet ending? So let's say you want to have a vote or some kind of a voting, okay, and you want to have a time frame for this vote, which makes sense, okay. So let's say it's a week, okay. So how do you prevent people to come in the last second on the last block, okay, on chain and just vote everything? And then if I'm looking on a vote and I look, okay, it's 40% or 20% for and none against, I don't even have to vote for it, right? It's sure that it's for. But everyone which are against will just wait for the last second and vote on the last second or on the last block. And we just had this case, right? DAOstack was just now on a voting to get into Phoenix, okay? And the first three top, the ones that got the most votes were listed in Phoenix, and we got in first. But if you look at the voting, what happened was that all the major votes happened in the last, I don't know, 10 minutes, okay? And this is a very bad game. That's a very bad practice, and they designed the game in a very harmful way. And they also they know that they are now redesigning it, okay? So the same here is what we did to solve this issue. We invented quiet ending. The idea is simple. In order for a vote to end, it needs to be quiet, namely not to change the outcome in the last, I don't know, 1 hour, 24 hours, whatever time frame you choose. For example, I think now in Genesis it's 48 hours. It used to be 24 on the last Genesis. So if on the last 48 hours, the score changed, so it went from pass to fail, then immediately you add time, so it will be 48 hours. So you need more 48 hours from now, okay? It's like a tennis thing, I don't know, when you need to have more than one score or point against your opponent. So that's quite ending, and the purpose is not to have people coming at the last second and change the outcome of the vote.
Okay, so just another question, another comment that's come up in recent weeks that we've heard is that the caching layer that you've been working on, a big proportion of the DAOstack team have been working on the last few months is the caching layer, and it's very important and quite interesting. And I'd love to hear more about why this is. How does this change the way you develop?
So I think the caching is a change which is not just coming into DAOstack. It's basically coming into almost every dApp. So at the beginning, what we saw is people building dApps which are pure JavaScript that interacts directly with the blockchain via Web3, and this is very nice. It's so compelling, and that you want it to be this way because it means that you have no server at all, and everything is really decentralized in a very strict sense, and you only need a blockchain in order for the dApp to work, and it's really compelling. And the first version of the UI of DAOstack that was not even published, that I built a long time ago, it worked like that, and it was only on IPFS, and it had no server at all, and it worked beautifully. But once you start to grow, once you have real functionality in the app, it doesn't work anymore, because the amount of data that you need to get from the blockchain is becoming bigger and bigger, and Web3 and the way the data is stored on chain is really not designed in a way for you to get the information directly to the dApp. So it means that you need to have a lot of calls to the blockchain, or basically to the node, to the Web3 provider. And it makes the dApp to work. It makes it work slowly, and B, it also makes it work like in a way, I don't know if you've seen this in dApp, that the dApp loads, and then things start to change. You have this, you have a proposal, then it ends, and then all in a few seconds until the screen like calms down. And think of what will happen to this dApp in a year from now, when you have all of this history that it needs to integrate. So it doesn't really scale, it doesn't work. And basically, in order to make the experience of users, one last thing, it means that when someone goes into a dApp, it has to have like a Web3 provider. It has to be connection to the blockchain, and otherwise it cannot see anything. So the first thing that a dApp will tell you is connect to MetaMask, which is really not a good UX. Okay, let me see what's going on. So I think all of these things are basically solved once you have a caching layer. So basically you have a server that is listening to the blockchain, taking all the information, process it already in order to make it available for the dApp, and the dApp can read from it. Now there are, of course, it's a huge advantage. You can build fast things, at least in the reading part. Of course, writing to the blockchain still takes 15 seconds in order to mine a block, but reading is really fast. The experience for the user is really good. You can start working without connecting to MetaMask, and only connecting to your Web3 provider once you want to really do a transaction or sign something. The one downside to it, of course, is decentralization. You need to make sure that the users basically are not don't have to use your server, and we've given that a lot of thought. I'm not sure if we need to go into that now, but basically we've given that a lot of thought, and the way we solve it is just open sourcing the server, and you can run your own caching server just like you run your own node, and it's completely decentralized.
So, and just a little follow-up to that. Obviously, you need to make, to prioritize and make decisions in tech teams, but what were the trade-offs in choosing to prioritize this caching layer so heavily?
So I think there was not really even a question, because if you've used the old Alchemy, you know it was horrible. From the guy who built it, I was like really ashamed. Although other people told me, it's cutting edge, you have to be proud of it, but to give such an experience to user, it really hurt me. The people had to wait so long to work with something. So I think there was not a question that we really had to have something that provides good UX. Otherwise, we will just not have users. It doesn't work if you have super technology if no one uses it.
Well, switching gears, something that came up a couple times in the questions was, at what point, or maybe even now, could Alchemy and the stack behind it be used to run a town or a country? And so kind of embedded in this question that Rick asked is, what are some of the limitations to a DAO handling resources? Like what types of proposals can the DAO not auto-execute and thus can't govern? How could a protocol like Materium that's supposed to manage physical assets play into this?
So that's really nice question, Rick. And I think, so again, there's a few parts to it, but the basic idea is that we want to say that the DAO is auto-executing everything. So basically, it does not rely on anything external. But it only applies to things which are on-chain, right? You cannot say it auto-execute, the selling of a car or a property. So like a real estate property. It doesn't work this way. So first of all, we have to understand that the real auto-execution is limited to on-chain things. But it's important to say that on-chain things are growing. There are more and more things that are on-chain. And as this process, as we see this process and the things that you can do on the blockchain is really evolving, we see that the power of DAOs increases tremendously. So for one example is Pipit. I don't know if you know Pipit, is like the Twitter on Ethereum. So the idea that people used to tell me, okay, but a DAO cannot hold the domain because you need to be the domain owner, or it cannot hold a Twitter account or a Facebook account or a GitHub account. But you see now that you have domains, you have ENS instead of regular DNS, and you have Pipit instead of Twitter. And regarding GitHub, so you have Gitcoin. Okay, so you see a lot of the legacy world things going on chain, and all of these things, once they go on chain, then the DAO can be the owner of these accounts, or the owner or holding these properties. Now this is the first thing to understand. The second thing is really the how do we link, or how do we basically mine the gap, as we say, how do we mine the gap of the real world? And we see a lot of movement these days about this question. So I don't know how back you go in this space, but there used to be a company which was called DAOlink, which was the company that was supposed to help the DAO, the original DAO that crashed, to interact with the real world. And we see such projects today. We see Materium, which I've met one of the guys in Paris, which is supposed to bridge this link. And we see, I know Koala is working on very similar questions. And for DAOstack specifically, I know that one of our strategic goals for this year is to have like a physical DAO, a DAO that holds some kind of a physical assets or property. And we intend to use such services like Materium, like what Koala is building, such solutions in order to allow this DAO to own such a property. And I think this is a big step for DAOs. But we have to understand what can really be auto-executed and what relies on this link, okay, on this Materium link, for example. Okay.
So just to follow up to that,
yeah.
If the UK was run on DAOstack, how would it have handled Brexit?
So that's nice, but I have to say that I think if so think of it. What does it mean? Did it really auto-execute that the UK voted for Brexit? Not really, right? It's been like how long? A year and a half or so, and they're still not. They're still in the union. So I think, in a sense, you could have done the same voting process on chain that was done in the UK on Alchemy, for example. I think it would have much better, let's say, there will be much improvements, because if you would have such a Materium link and you would have it all handled by smart contracts, then by definition it means that the question would have been more well defined. So the question in the Brexit was not well defined. Do you want to exit? Yes or no? But you see now that there is like a year of negotiation of how we exit. So it's not a binary question. Maybe I'm for exiting in these terms, but I'm against exiting in that terms, you know? So if you would have wanted to put this question on chain, it means that you need to come up with a proposal of how you do that, okay? And then propose that. And then I can review it and I can vote for or against. And if this proposal passes, then of course we go through it automatically or via some link. But I think in some sense it would have improved the process.
Great, I think that's a really good answer. Thanks, Adam. We'll pass that on to those Brexiters. Ari.
Yeah, so last question that we'll go through from the forum, and then we can kind of open it up if we have time. But what are your thoughts on inter-blockchain or blockchain agnostic protocols? And is there a plan or a way that ARC could be implemented on other blockchains other than Ethereum? And how would the different DAOs on the different chains talk to each other, if this is even possible?
Okay, so it's a good question. It's also like an ideological question. I'll start by saying that I'm a big fan of Ethereum. I'm also a big fan of Bitcoin. Okay, and I'm less of a fan of other blockchains, although I'll not get into specifics, but there are blockchains that I like and blockchains that I don't like, technically, not anything else. And DAOstack is considering to use also, or I will not say use, I'll say support other platforms. Of course, there are a lot of platforms which are EVM based, like Tron, for example, which comes like almost for free. Nothing is for free, but almost for free. But let's say you wanted to migrate DAOstack into EOS, then this would mean much more work because you need to rewrite the whole contract. And there are also some concepts that you need to take care of. I think in a sense that we are thinking on this direction, but this is definitely not our main course. So it's not our main focus. Our main focus now is actually the users. We think that the technology is ripe enough for the numbers of users that we have today. And I think we want to bring in the users and really get the experience of real users using our product and see that they are happy with it. And if they're really happy with it, then we can improve it and maybe support other chains and or anything else. But I think we need to focus, not just work with the FOMO. This space is full of fear of missing out. I'm not afraid of missing out the next blockchain, really not. Okay, I'm afraid of missing the users.
Yeah, It's good to know. So just one question to sum up, Adam, and then we'll just see if we've got a bit of time, I think, for some questions from the crowd. Can you tell us what your biggest fear is for alchemy? And the second part is also, what is your biggest hope?
So I think for me, I know I have there's difference on opinion in like the core team of DAOstack on this question, but I'll give you my answer. So the only fear that I have is that we will not have users, that people will not use us. I'm not afraid of it being used for malicious things or anything. Like it's not that I don't care, but I think of it. Most projects, 99% of startups don't get into a position that anyone really uses their products. So this is what we really should be afraid of, okay? I'm trying to build something that people will use, that will be useful for anyone, you know? That's my main, and that's also my main fear, that we will not succeed in that. Other than that, really nothing. As long as we are able to hit the users and provide some kind of utility, it's good. And my biggest hope is that we will build, we will build something that will be the I don't know how to say it, but will be the root for the DAO ecosystem, just to build something that will be solid enough that it doesn't have to be very good, it doesn't have to have a lot of features, but it will be solid enough to start this revolution of DAOs.
Fantastic. Thank you for your hopes and dreams. Yes, let's open it up to the audience. Ori, if you've noticed a question from the group, or if someone has a question, a follow-up question to some of these technical answers, please raise your hand and feel free to ask it now.
I see Rick had a question about scalability. He says so in the chat, but I don't see the question. Is the question in the forum? I'm not sure. Can anyone see it? I'm not in the forum. Oh.
Rick, can you talk, or just a...
I think it's only on chat. Oh, I see it. I have a problem with prediction network that will really throttle my involvement and could threaten its scalability. Taxes, I'm not going to make a lot of predictions. Manually coded gas clauses, current crypto tax services, put your wallet history, and the gen balance. Okay, so Rick has a question regarding the scalability of prediction network, and also something regarding his taxes, which I'm not sure regarding the gen value of and taxes. So I'm not a tax consultant, and although I do know some things about it because I'm a long time into crypto, and taxes in Israel are not your friend. But I'll not go into that. Maybe you can chat later. Regarding the scalability of the prediction network. So this is actually something that we are very, let's say, attentive to, okay? The scalability problem. And as I said, if we hit the scalability problem, then we're in very good shape. It means if we stop Ethereum like CryptoKitties did for 2 days, that's very good for us. Okay, that it means that we get real usage, and I can tell you that we're not waiting until then to solve this issue. I already said in this chat that we're working on the next version, and there is a workshop like a month from now, a DAOstack core workshop on the next version of the basically the architecture of the stack. And one, or maybe the biggest thing in this workshop is the scalability issue. I can tell you that we've already done the first step towards scalability, and it's the step of separation. So basically, Arc and Infra used to be the same. It used to be in one package, and we basically separated Arc from Infra. And the reason that we've done that, one reason, or the biggest reason, the most important reason, is because we wanted to separate the part that needed scalability the most. And the part that needs scalability the most is infra, because there you have the voting and you have the staking, which are the two most, interactions that people do with the contracts. And the first thing we will try to do, of course, is to make infra off-chain, and we already are working on that, or starting to work on that, in a sense.
Great, thanks for that clarification. Ari, did you want to say something?
Sure. So we went over Alchemy Earth a lot, and then some of the questions around the protocol, but I'm not sure how much we covered integrations and how new dApps could integrate DAO functionality, or how Alchemy could integrate functionality from other dApps. So an example would be a DAO opening up a Dharma loan, or a DAO opening up a MakerDAO CDP, but all these more complex actions that a DAO could take that a lot of other teams have already done the legwork of building a protocol or a dApp around. Mm-hmm. So how do you see, I know there's really a lot of different kinds, but can you give some examples of how an integration would look?
Yeah. So basically, the idea is that DAOstack, again, an organization can do anything on the blockchain. So for example, it can tweet on PPs, or it can, get some DAI for Ether on a maker contract. It can do anything. And it can do prediction market on nodes, whatever you like, it can do. So to integrate into on-chain services, this is really easy. Okay, we already have a scheme that does that. We call it a generic scheme because it just calls the contract. Okay, and Alchemy will soon have UI for that. So this is already in a sense, this is very soon. Regarding the other part, namely integrating of other dApps. So this is just, it's a dApp. A dApp is not a modular thing. A dApp is a JavaScript file, in the end. So we choose what to bring in and what features to bring in, and if you build something that you want to be in Alchemy, then PR it to us, and we'll either accept it or not. And if you don't like it, that we do not, or if we don't accept it and you don't like it, then build a competitor to Alchemy. We'll be very happy.
So on that note, there's been a lot of questions around the beyond Alchemy. So how would how could a DAO interact with other dApps, or other protocols rather, without Alchemy? Like there's for example, there's a signing tool that allows you to use a dApp and route the signature through another contract. So you could route it through the DAO. What do you see? How do you see the ecosystem evolving outside of Alchemy, besides just an alternate Alchemy that's maybe different features?
So as I said at the beginning, Alchemy is merely a window to the blockchain that helps you interact with it. But if anyone builds another dApp, which is not just a copy paste of Alchemy or an Alchemy and competitor, let's say it does completely other things, okay, and to these DAOs, then it's great, and it can interact with these DAOs. Everything is on chain, and they can interact with the DAO. I think it will be really nice once we see that, and that's in a sense it will also force us. If many people will use that, it will also force us to bring this into Alchemy, because then people will want to see that this is going on in this DAO. Otherwise, they just can't see it in Alchemy. But I think this type of thing will happen.
Great. Going, Ari?
Yeah. Last question for me. So yeah, how could, if a developer is interested in working at any layer of the stack, where's the best place to start?
So it depends on the developer, of course, but but I think for me, that's my, I'm a theoretical physicist, so I say start, at the bottom. Try to understand things from the bottom up. That's how I do things. But if you're just a React developer and you don't want to understand contracts too much, and just use our, we try to build the APIs good enough so you can just fit in on top without understanding all the way down. But if you are capable, then I say start from the bottom and work yourself your way up. That's my approach.
It's a good approach. Mark, I know it's you might be a bit slow because it's 3 a.m. where you are, but because you've joined this call and you are really thinking about how to build on the DAOstack, do you have anything that you need to know from Adam before we end the call?
Not much else that hasn't been covered. I think I was just really interested in the how external agencies, groups of developers can get involved in the ecosystem. I think that you've talked about that already. I guess my only other question which you also covered already was around the other blockchains, the Dfinities, the EOSs, and I think you've sort of said that that's not your focus in the short term, but you're keeping an eye on that world. That's my understanding, which is fair enough. So those are the main areas. I guess my other question, which while I'm here, is as a developer coming into this ecosystem, there's a couple of big players. There's DAOstack and there's Aragon seem to be the big players. Do you have a comment on why if a developer's going to choose between, say, DAOstack and Aragon, why they invest their time learning DAOstack as opposed to Aragon? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I can tell you that I'm being asked about Aragon a lot, and my usual answer is that Aragon and DAOstack are not even building the same thing, so they're not really competitors. So in a sense, we're doing like the buzzwords are very similar, and the titles or the wording is very similar, but the ideation process behind it is very different. I think when we say DAO and they say DAO, we're not thinking about the same thing. And because most people have very little clue what a DAO is, then it looks similar. But once you go into the details, I think Aragon and us have very different ideas. And I'm not saying, it's hard to say at this point which ideas are correct on how to build organization or how to have people collaborate. It's not a technological, it's not I provide more transaction per second or I do this and that. It's ideation and ideology questions. So I think Aragon are doing their stuff pretty great. I think they have a good team. I think they're building nice products. I don't agree with what they're building, like if it serves, if it has good purpose of what they're building and how they're building that. But it's not that I think that the technology sucks. And I think for developers that want to choose between DAOstack and Aragon, I just urge you, just look at both. I've had several, not just developers, but projects that want to have a DAO, for example, that went and talked to Aragon and then came and talked to us, and then they chose. And it was clear that the choice is not a technical choice. It's really it's ideological choice. What do you see? What do you think what do you imagine when you say the word DAO? We have now the exact experiment with Kyber. I don't know if you know Kyber networks. They're a liquidity network. So Kyber had an experiment with Aragon, and now they will have an experience soon with DAOstack. And I can tell you that the experience, their experiment with their community on Aragon didn't go very well, which I think, and it's not because the technology is not good. I think the idea or the protocols that they're using are not good enough for these needs. So that's my view on this, let's say, rivalness. I don't see it as, again, I don't see it as real competition, because I think we're taking completely different niches inside this world that people call it like decentralized governance or decentralized collaboration. I think we're doing completely different things.
Okay, we might have to finish there, Adam, because we're at our time. But thank you so much for joining this AMA, and we do hope to have another one with you in a couple of months. There are some questions that are filtering through on the chat that we'll collect, and if we could even ask them with Matan, who we plan to do the next AMA with at the end of April. So, well, in a couple of weeks, basically. And also a huge thanks to Ori for jumping on and being our technical translator and just pushing through with a few questions. Thanks a lot, Ori. It was really, really helpful. And thanks to all of you for joining. And we'll be putting this onto the DAOstack YouTube channel. And if you do know people that are wanting to learn more about the tech and the stack and wanting to figure out where to start developing, show them this, and there'll be lots more conversations happening about how people can join the different small teams that are developing or just start working on the stack. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop recording now.